Civil rights groups are raising questions about the case of a Venezuelan man deported from the United States to El Salvador. The Trump administration says Franco Caraballo is a gang member, even though he has no criminal record. It's just one case of US authorities sending allegedly innocent migrants to a Salvadorian mega prison known for human rights violations. DW's Benjamin Alvarez Gruber reports.
This is Secot, the terrorism confinement center in El Salvador the President Nayib Bukele offered to house criminals deported by the United States. Recently, 238 Venezuelans were deported and sent to the maximum security prison. One of them is 26-year-old Venezuelan barber Franco Caraballo, who came to the U.S. in October of 2023 to apply for asylum along with his wife. After filing his asylum application, he was given appointments to check in with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE. That's the last thing he did in February before being detained and deported, his attorney told us.
In the middle of the night, the Trump administration secretly invoked the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, and they charged Franco, my client, along with over 100 other Venezuelans, with being active members of Tren de Aragua, with little to no proof and no chance of due process for any of these individuals to defend those allegations.
When the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, was made aware of the plan, they drafted a temporary restraining order to stop these flights from taking place. A district judge issued an order temporarily blocking the deportations, but the White House defended the deportation flights, claiming all planes were already in the air.
Customs and Border Patrol and ICE and the Department of Homeland Security are sure about the identities of the individuals who were on these planes and the threat that they pose to our homeland.
We gained access to Franco Caraballo's record of deportable inadmissible alien form. That's a document detailing any potential reasons for an individual's deportability. But Franco says that he has no known criminal history in the United States or in Venezuela. His attorney believes he was deported for a different reason.
They focused on tattoos. They would interview these individuals about their tattoos. And what's interesting is that they're very innocuous tattoos that are very common and popular, such as roses, lions, pocket watches, crowns. He told his wife that all the other individuals had tattoos, right? And then just the media reports that have come out of other individuals have pretty much established that they were only focused on these tattoos.
DW reached out to the Department of Homeland Security for comment, but was asked to forward the request to the State Department. The head of DHS, Christy Noem, recently toured the facility, thanking El Salvador for its cooperation.
First of all, do not come to our country illegally. You will be removed and you will be prosecuted. But know that this facility is one of the tools in our toolkit that we will use if you commit crimes against the American people.
Both the Trump and the Bukele administration celebrate this new step. Family members, friends, and Franco's attorney are trying to secure his release. But it is one of many cases where who has jurisdiction over the executive agreement between the U.S. government and Bukele is far from clear.
Well, that report from our correspondent Benjamin Alvarez Gruber, who joins us now from our Washington bureau. Welcome, Ben. So tell us about the evidence, if there was any, that the Trump administration provided to justify Franco Caraballo's deportation.
So first of all, it was quite hard for Franco's wife and also for the attorney to find out what actually happened. The attorney was contacted several weeks after he was detained in this ICE facility and then deported to El Salvador. There is a database, and when the name is not on that database anymore, that means that the person is no longer in the United States, and that's where they had the first rumors also going around saying that he was deported to El Salvador. I'm having this form right in front of me, this record of deportable inadmissible alien, where you have the information on the tattoos that we also saw in that report. And that's also the attorney, not only in this case, is saying that this was used to identify, that officials used this to identify him as an alleged member of Tren de Aragua, because if you look at the record of deportable, excludable alien, it says none known at this time, looking at the criminal history. And the attorney also sent me the same document from Venezuela, where Franco is from, showing also that there's no criminal history here. It's hard to actually think what these tattoos might look like, what the motive might look like. There is one information that was shared by a department in Texas, is showing a couple of tattoos that might say that someone is a member of Tren de Aragua or for MS-13, so one of those gangs. But as experts are saying, having those tattoos does not mean that someone is part of those gangs. And the other side around, if someone does not have the tattoo, he can also be a gang member. So that's the assumption that they have, that he was deported due to these tattoos.
OK, so lots of assumptions, no due process. And deported, even though a judge issued a temporary restraining order. What does that tell us?
Also, if we look at the reaction of what happened, that Salvadorian President Nayib Bukele reacting with "oops, too late" on social media when this judge said that the planes had to turn around. The White House said that they were already in the air. There will be a judge later this week here in Washington also hearing this case, trying to find out if the Trump administration violated this court order of not making those planes turn around. This was only the first plane. We've heard that there was a second one already carrying around 17 Venezuelans that were also deported to El Salvador. But the bigger question is, who has jurisdiction over these cases now? Because there was a court filing on another case of a citizen called Gilmar Abrego Garcia, who is a father here in Maryland who was deported, and the Trump administration acknowledged that it was what they called it administrative error, claiming that they could not bring him back. So that, of course, Phil, raises question on what the other cases look like. This is not the only case of Franco where the attorneys believe that him having those tattoos actually made him deportable to El Salvador. But there are several things here that need to be, of course, talked about, and also to define on one side what the jurisdiction is looking like, and also in El Salvador is Nayib Bukele, the president of El Salvador, is offering this high security jails for foreign nationals, even though there is no law in El Salvador saying that foreigners can be kept in those prisons without due process, without having been charged in another country before being taken there.
And what do we know about this deal between the Trump administration and El Salvador regarding these deportations?
It was one of the first trips that Secretary of State Marco Rubio made to the region when he met Nayib Bukele there, and he praised it because El Salvador is getting paid for these people that are being deported there. We saw those videos, also the propaganda videos that that jail is known from, where also Kristi Noem went there. There was also another scandal where she was, we had to then report there, where she was standing there with a golden Rolex that, according to US media, is worth more than $50,000. So it's not just deporting, but it's also the visuals that they want to have. Let's remember that the Trump administration did it with Guantanamo, with the naval base in Cuba, then sending most of the migrants back, and now also with El Salvador, calling this one of the tools in our toolbox that we have, because once the people are in the jail in El Salvador, and we know of those human rights abusers and also human rights organizations pointing at the situation of the detainees in those jails, that it's pretty hard also for the US to then get them back and actually to get this information out, because many family members and attorneys find out that the loved ones, that the family members are already in El Salvador when they are there already. So we can be sure that the discussion surrounding this, not only the legal aspect, but also the humanitarian aspect, will continue to be talked about. And the discussion also between if the Trump administration really just ignored this court order and let this deportation to continue was actually the case. And also what that would mean for further deportation that the Trump administration has already pledged.
OK, thank you for that, Ben. Benjamin Alvarez, Gruber in Washington.